Well, it failed because you're never home for dinner. Okay, I'm gonna have dinner at the same time every night, and I'm not gonna let my customers call me during that time. Great! You've created a work balance. But the time that I'm giving to my customer, it is all their time. They can talk to me about anything. I am there for them 100%. Challenges are number one because everybody's got ideas. Ideas don't make money. If they did, we'd all be rich, right? You gotta do something. You got to produce a result. And when you're working through the grind to get that happening, all you do is face challenges. Because if you didn't face any challenges, you wouldn't even have a podcast. Everybody would just be successful every time they touched everything. The challenges are what makes you who you are. I went into my business knowing the hardest challenge that I had to overcome. I literally left a six-figure position to segue into this business. Now, I set it up in a nice way where I was able to work some of the time while I was doing it because I understood the challenge that I was going to have many children and I was going to have to commute and I was going to have to do this, I have to do that. And how's my business going to do? It's nothing. My business is just an idea right now. This is covering my life right here. I'm going to let all this go and just do this. You know, not everybody has that challenge. Some people living at home and they're starting a business, but it's going to happen. So the challenges, I think, are very important to understand what your challenges are and how to overcome them more importantly. Challenges in business are going to be failure. It's the biggest reason why people go out of business. You know, a lot of businesses fall because they don't have enough money because the business is just revolved around how much money we can bring in to pay for the business. It's a failing business, right? You see that a lot in many fields. You need to have a mental toughness that says, if something hits me, I can see what hit me, I can take it, and I can correct and do something better. I'm not talking about the customer that's calling and complaining and now you think your whole reputation's on the line. That's just an instance. There's an instance and then there's a really challenge. A challenge is every single customer is telling me that my ads are false and that they're calling because they think it's about this, but it's really about that. But if I don't advertise, I get no customers. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. So to me, that's an easy challenge because you just have to figure out how to advertise better. But to someone who's spending money to advertise and they don't have a lot of money, it weighs heavy on them. And people will give up or not work through the challenge. A lot of times people also give up on things that are great because they're not willing to work through the challenge of what's there. You have an obnoxious customer who's very wealthy, but he can do 10 times the volume of somebody else. So maybe the challenge is understanding how to manage a customer like this. Or maybe it's the platform that you're on and it's oversaturated. And the challenge is being seen because there's 30 other people doing the same thing you're doing. And now you're starting to feel like you're not any better than anybody else. But what you're not realizing is the other 29 people are doing the exact same thing you're doing and thinking the exact same thing you're doing. And the ones that are successful are the ones that are overcoming that challenge while the other ones are falling. In fact, when you overcome challenges, you're probably overcoming it in an arena where other people are experiencing the same thing. And when the wave passes, there's usually a lot more business for you because they've all given up. So very important. It happened in the web space with the internet, right? AOL was like, welcome, you got mail, right? You didn't think that was ever going to end, my generation. And now, what is AOL? Who are they? AIM.com?
My grandma has an AOL.
Exactly. Not even a dot because they didn't move with the times. They didn't move the challenge of their business. Google came out and said, oh, the challenge is having all the information, right? Yahoo is there. But sometimes you search the web when I was growing up and it wasn't. Google says, we're going to get all the information. We're going to be the only one with everything. And then they had everything. So where'd you go? You went to Google. And then Google came up with the first online platform, major one, YouTube. And that was a disaster when it first started. Nobody had the bandwidth. Who could upload a video? Like, people didn't have computers for that. And the space to maintain that at the time, millions of dollars a year just to host the videos, doing nothing. It's a challenge. You think Google didn't have to work through that? They're a company that has no product other than the product that you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing physical. It was just a search. If everybody decided they don't want to search anymore, their business is dead. So you got to keep people alive here and bring them back to you constantly, right? And they did it in so many different ways, but it was overcoming the challenge. My biggest challenge was maintaining the balance between family and business, because my family means a lot to me, and I never want them to suffer. A lot of people do that. They put everything in their business and don't take care of their family. I had to be accurate. I said to myself, you can't guess anymore, because you could do this for 12 hours a day and have plenty of time for your family, or 10 hours a day. But what you're doing needs to make sense. It can't be guesswork.
How do you take out the guesswork?
Trial and error and metrics.
Metrics.
And hard work. You're working. You opened your eyes when I said I made 200 calls minimum a day. And I still have my original call sheets.
My eyes are still open since then.
Right? And when I first started, it was 300. Do the math. 2 people, exact same talent level. One guy's making 10 calls a day. Another guy's making 100 calls a day. Same talent level. This guy is 1,000 times more productive than this guy, just because he's making 10 times as many calls. What do you equate that to? What do you call that? I call that hard work. I call that every time I'm on the phone and it's annoying and I hear the same and someone hangs up on me, I'm challenged to make sure that I don't get hung up on the next time.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
You made 200 plus calls a day.
Yep.
Cold calls.
Mm-hmm.
That means you got rejected 198 times a day at least.
Or they didn't pick up, but yeah. Okay. I used to break my calls into metrics. I'll tell you what I taught my salespeople. Make calls, people you get on the phone, people that are interested, people that take the next step, which in my business was running their credit report to see if they were qualified, and then a qualified lead, and then a sale. All different stages of the call. And every person that worked for me could be evaluated differently. Now, I built this for myself, and then I used it for everybody else. But I would watch myself talk to people, we're sitting at a desk. Hey, man, how's it going? Yeah, did you get lunch today? Hold on. Oh, they didn't pick up. So what's going on? Right? Normal. Take it more seriously. Can't talk right now. Got a power dial. Take it more seriously. I can power dial, but when I get on the phone, I got to pick it up. Now you got confidence and you're serious. Eventually, you got a regiment. One guy's doing 10 calls, one guy's doing 20, one guy's doing 50, one guy's doing 100. The guy doing 100 plus calls has no problem saying anything to anybody because he's done it so many times. He's not talking like, sir, he's not doing that because he's done it 1,000 times. And if he does that, he's like, you know what? I had 2 thoughts at the same time now. Sorry, Bob. Say it one more time, because he can do that.
I like that line. I have like 7 thoughts at the same time.
I do it all the time. I'm honest in my conversation with people, and they appreciate that. Sometimes I'm a little too open, as you see, I overtalk. But I think people appreciate just directness. You have to be able to work through a conversation.
I brought my little baby to a meeting, here and there. If I had no choice, I said, listen, this is the time of our meeting. Unfortunately, this is what ended up.
And that's the challenge. The challenge is when things aren't perfect.
Yeah.
How do you handle them? That's literally what challenge is. When something is not going the way you think it should be going, it's a challenge. So I love challenge because nothing should go the way I think it should be going. Because if everything was going the way I think it should be going, then I wouldn't be learning anything new, and I wouldn't be growing. I used to love getting on the phone and making as many calls as I could and outperforming everybody, and I would follow those metrics. I would make the calls, and I would see how many people I got in touch with. And I would call different leads. And I'd do the same thing. And I was able to evaluate which sources were better. Because they say a lead's a lead. Okay, to a degree it is, name and a phone number. But if you're buying 50 names in Texas and 50 names in New York and you're selling real estate or mortgages in New York, then the 50 leads in Texas don't do anything for you. So,
right.
That's on an easy scale. But there's micro scales, and people complain all the time. Oh, it's not me, it's the leads. No, it's you. Unless you could tell me which leads to buy because you figured it out, because you overcame the challenge and you realized exactly what's wrong.
I heard a little trick to overcome the challenge of objection.
Go ahead.
Every time you get a rejection or an objection, you tick a box.
That's good for motivation.
Motivation, absolutely. It gets you on the next call.
Yeah, that's just motivation. Truth is, you need that initially. Once you get used to it, you don't need that.
Once you cross 1,000 calls, you don't need that.
The reason why people need that consistently is because they haven't really learned anything. If you need to do that every day, then you're not in the zone. I couldn't count the amount of calls I missed or people that hung up on me because I didn't think about it enough. If you hung up on me, I understood you didn't want my business. Why does that have to be an emotional conversation? You don't want my business. Best 4-letter word in sales. Next. It's the best 4-letter word. Next. You want to go talk to your friend at the water cooler about how terrible the customer you spoke? How's that making you any money? All it's doing is degrading your emotions and your attitude. Don't even take it at face value. It's not worth anything. So your metrics are what's going to matter because you can evaluate yourself. So like, I make 300 calls a day. Do I need to make more calls? Tell me, do I need to make more calls? 300 calls a day enough?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, right? 200 calls a day enough? Absolutely. The next best guy was doing 50. So I was obviously making enough calls. So the first 3 months, I was the only one that didn't get a deal in the
Wait,
first
can we do some math over here? How many calls is that?
About 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, depending if I made 200 or 300 in the day. But yeah, it's a lot of calls. Nothing, no business, just potential people. Why? Because that's just one aspect. Great. I have no problem calling. Doesn't bother me. The next step is how many people was I getting on the phone? And I realized that there were different leads that everybody was calling. I said, well, what am I calling? What are they calling? And I tried different things. I actually found in my career the old leads that were 3 months or 4 months old were the best things that I ever did. Those were the best for my career for years. Because the ones that didn't buy were ready. And there's not 100 people calling them at the same time at that point. They're not a new lead. So you're catching them not after another guy called them. Oh, here's another guy calling me. I just clicked on a button and I got 12 people calling me now. So you don't got to realize what's going on, right? So then the next step in the metric was how many people I got on the phone. That's when I started to worry if I didn't produce. If I'm making 300 calls a day and I'm only getting 2 people on the phone, there's a problem. I'm either calling at the wrong time, or the numbers aren't good, or my number's showing up and they've been called 100 times and they know not to pick up this number. You know, like you have to figure out why aren't they picking up my call? That's the second step in the metrics. So you're very intrigued by this calling thing because it seems so overwhelming to you, but it's really not. Calling was the easiest part. All I do is pick up and press a few buttons on a phone. It's not hard. The hard part is getting the sale. And how do you get the sale? So the next step in the process was actually making contacts. Now I can start really measuring my metrics, right? If I'm making 200 calls here and 200 calls here and I'm getting on the phone with every other customer here and I'm getting on the phone 1 out of 20 here, then these leads are not the leads that I need to be using right away. These are my backup. Because these are the ones I can get people on the phone with. Okay, now I get them on the phone. How many of them are doing the application? That's where it matters. Now, in that stage, it has nothing to do with external. Now it's internal. Now it's all about you. It's not about what the company gave you, the leads they gave you are good, bad, better, worse. Now it's you. Because they got on the phone. They heard you. Now they're talking to you. Now they're having a conversation with you. Now the question is, are they going to fill out an application? The first thing you have to ask yourself is, do I have a product that works for them? And if you do, then there be no reason why your product doesn't sell. So that's where the rebuttals and the overcoming obstacles and understanding your business come into play. I don't even get into that anymore because I know my business so well. When somebody gets on the phone with me, I'm giving them the rebuttals. Oh, you're not ready to buy now. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're not ready to buy now. You don't have enough money. They're like, yeah, well, I can. No, you can't. You can't. You need to get a mortgage. And they're not going to qualify you unless you have enough of a down payment. You don't have enough. What you can do is you can shop now, and we can get an idea of what price range we can get you in. That would be a house sale, for example. Mortgage sale. Well, how do you know? You don't know anything. You haven't run your credit. You have no idea. But that's where the sale comes in. Now you have to figure out what the customer wants and how you're going to give it to them. And if you're not going to give them what they want, are you in the right business, or are you selling the right product, or are you talking to the right customer? You know, if somebody doesn't want to buy a pen, why are you going to try selling pens? It's not about how hard you push somebody. That's rookie sales 101.
A lot of it is also about understanding them and where they're coming from, understanding their pain points and what angle to explain your offer at.
And just like I mentioned in streams of revenue, identifying each thing individually, so can you in your phone call and your starting process and your cold calling and all that. The first metric is calling, right? That's a skill in and of itself. Can you sit there and dial 300 times a day? Maybe not. The second one is, can you talk to 300 people a day? Maybe not. The third one is, when you talk to them, do you know what you're talking about? Can you get them to the finish line? Do you know where the finish line is? Do you have an understanding of how to get to the finish line? And there's some businesses where they don't. That's why they have telemarketers and salespeople that hand the call off. Because some people can only do the first 2 stages, and they can't do the third stage. The next step is, after you've already attained their loyalty and their customer, actually giving them the product and getting them to the finish line. That's where the customer satisfaction comes in. That's where the work comes in. And then, before you get them to the finish line, if you're smart, you understand that at that point, you have the most loyalty you ever get from that customer. They are about to get your product. The excitement level is an all-time high because they haven't touched it yet, and they want it. That's when you ask for referrals. That cuts your job in half. Because during the most excited part of the customer that's very happy about you, that's when they're talking about you. Not calling them 3 months later when they remember you. Oh, hey, I remember you, Bob. How you been? Kind of like when someone's on the phone with you, customer service, and they do a good job and they say, hey, you mind filling out a survey? Because they just helped you. Are you going
to call? It has to be after you help them.
Right after. Are you going to go fill out a survey a month later when they call you, when Verizon calls you, say, hey, we had a customer service guy call you 3 months ago, and he seemed to have handled your problem. Could you fill out this survey and tell us how Charlene did? I was just calling to see if my phone plan was good. But at the time, when you weren't sure and they saved you $20, you were really happy with Charlene. Can I ask you any question? Oh, Charlene, you've been amazing. Can you do me a favor then? It's only going to take about a minute. I've already listened to the survey. The survey takes about 40 seconds, 50 seconds. Could you just fill it out for me? Just, it does really well for me. If you could fill out a survey, that would be great. I'm not going to tell you how to fill it out, but hopefully it's good. Yeah, sure, no problem. It'll come over in the next 10 seconds. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Anything you need, thank you for calling Verizon. Like, I'm not even Verizon. Like, that's how I would do it, And the person most likely will do it. I had a friend that used to send out an email. It's a really cool service. I should do this. And it had 6 different referral places in the one email. And they would copy over the message you left. Yeah, he was really good. But you'd have to go through the process for each place, but it carried over your typing. Because if I told you, hey, could you write 6 reviews for me for 6 different places right now? You're like, what? I'll write 1 review, right?
It was a service that they just put the review in that.
They wanted every online service to be checked. So if you went on Zillow, if you went on this, if you went on that, you got a 5-star, 10-star review of every single one.
So the customer, the client would only have to type it in once, but it would...
But he'd have to go through the process of going to each one, but it would be through the email system. Like it somehow... you clicked on the link and it took you from one place to the next and then finalized it. So that in that moment, you didn't have to go back to your customer 6 months later to fill out different things. He filled out all of the reviews. You're on your website, this, and it carried over everywhere. It was brilliant.
And the client would just copy paste it?
No, it would copy and paste for the client. Like you type in your review, and then you're done with this. I reviewed you, right? Now, can you review us also in Google? Here's the review.
Show up with the
Here's the review you gave previously. Click on this link, and then you would be able to press the copy. You click on the button, you put it in, and you'd be able to do it. And it was brilliant. The only problem is, as a consumer, and I told my friend, I said, I got pretty annoyed because you handed this to me, and I started it, and now I find myself after 5 minutes still clicking.
Like a funnel.
And I'm like, dude, I want to do you a favor, but like this is annoying. And in that moment, I realized it had to be shorter. He's not going to produce anything, only from his friends. He said, you'd be better off calling the person online and having 5 links ready and say, hey, I'm going to send you 3 links. Could you quickly write it? And we just like publish them right now with me. How are your kids, by the way? Everything good? Did that person? And you just keep them busy. Yeah, sure, no problem. Oh, the link just got there. So what did you say? They went into softball? Wow, softball. They're good. Are they good at it? Are they like the best on the team? Or they're like my kids? They have no idea how to even throw a ball. Yeah, and then, I see you're done with the review. Great. Can I send you another one? Sure. By the way, how's your wife? You know what I'm saying? So like you have to know when to do what. But at each stage, there's a challenge. The guy that doesn't like to talk to people, he's going to be challenged at the stage when he has to get on the phone with somebody. The guy that doesn't like to do paperwork, now that he got the deal, he has to draw it all up, fill it out. He doesn't want to do that. Sometimes the deal sits on the desk and dies because it never gets submitted or done or filled out. So it's important that you know the stages and you know what you're good and not good at each stage. And I used to do this with salespeople when I was in the banking business. I used to do a 2-week course and I'd sit with them and I'd make them take a notepad and Roman numerals. 1 call, 2 call, 3 call, 4 call, 5 call. 1 call, 2 call, 3 call, 4 call, 5. 1 contact. 1 application. 1 call, 2 calls, 2 contacts.
No, they call it tally, no? What do they
Yeah,
call
it's a tally system.
Tally system.
But
yeah.
I did it with, they're tallying like 6 different things, and it carries over. Okay, and at the end of the day, I didn't have to spend a lot of time with them. As a manager, which I'm very good at, I was able to say, okay, let me look at your metrics. Bring me your metrics. You didn't do your metrics? Stay another hour. Oh, you did your metrics? Great. Let me see them. Okay, you made 200 calls. You got in touch with 20 people, 10% ratio. 5 of them want to do applications. Beautiful. But none of them worked out. Why? They all didn't qualify. All of them? You pulled credit reports? You did this? Yeah. Let me see the application. Now, as a manager, I can see if they're right or wrong because they're new. If they didn't have those metrics, we'd be having a conversation. I made a lot of calls. Okay? I was on the phone for 8 hours. Great. How many people do you speak to? I don't know. It's a lot of people. You can't. I don't know where your mistake is.
Can't make decisions based on that.
It's your emotions are talking to me. And you've had that conversation with people where your emotions are talking to you, you're talking to them back about their, like, you're not solving anything. Oh, it sounds like you did really good. Try again tomorrow. The metrics are the metrics. It's going to, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to produce the same results. That's just the way it is. If you're doing something different over and over again, you're going to produce different results. So the idea is to find what you're doing over and over again that works, and to keep doing that over and over again, and not doing over and over again what doesn't work, and stopping it, and not thinking about who you are, because who you are doesn't matter right now. That's what matters. Can you adapt to that? Can you adapt to that? You can't adapt to that. Maybe that's not for you. So that's the business. The calls are not that big of a deal. Honestly, if I could just make phone calls all day long, I'd be much happier than everything else. It's the easiest thing to do. You just pick up the phone, you dial it.
If you were to do some guesstimate math, I'm really curious. It's killing me.
Okay.
How many calls would you say you made in your entire career?
Ooh, good
cold
question.
Calls?
Give me a minute. So I've been in many, many, many sales jobs, and I was always the biggest performer to try to hit as many calls as I could possibly hit when it was phone sales, which I did a lot of. I'd say probably somewhere along the line of 500,000 calls, maybe more. I'm being a little conservative. I could have hit 1 million, but it's probably along the line of 500,000 because I'm taking off for holidays, and probably 500,000 calls.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
To me, it's not enough, because when I sign up to do something, I try to figure out what the maximum market cap is.
Over how many
years?
That
was 20 years. I only took 20 years sampling. That's why I said it's probably more, but I only took the most professional part of my life. I've been making calls and knocking on doors since I was a kid. There's, in multiple businesses, 4 people. I could never add up all of them. Plus, I ran clubs when I was younger, and I made calls to see who was going to show up, and that's how I made money there. It's like there's a number of ways where I made calls. So I can go in multiple avenues on how I made it. Charity, multiple calls for charity, whatever it is. If you say how many calls I made to generate a sale, it's probably 1 million. But yeah, 500,000 in my professional career was there. It sounds unbelievable, but it's really not as unbelievable. What's unbelievable about it is the time frame that I did it in. And what brings me back to one of my first statements. It's not about how much money you make. It's making the most amount of money for the longest period of time. It's being consistent in your behavior and consistent in your production. Consistency, consistency, consistency. My accountant says that all the time, and my old boss used to say it all the time. Consistency, consistency. It's very important. Being consistent is super duper important. The amount of calls are definitely, I feel accomplished. That's why I keep all my records, so people can see, oh wow, you really did that. But it's, what did I produce out of those calls? And I could tell you 490,000 of them produced nothing. They were training for the 10,000 that did produce something. And once I knew how to get to that 10,000 without doing that 490,000, that's the next step of the business. Truth is, I never stopped calling until the callings became less productive than other things. Hence why I say 6 streams of revenue, right? So if calling's your number one, don't stop calling. If that's what you're doing, just don't stop calling. But just figure out how to make it better and better and better and better. If you ask me how many hours somebody guarded and stood by a post and didn't move all day, and they said, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. I probably guarded, 100,000 hours. To me, that would be unbelievable, because I can't stand still every day for 12 hours. So, that's the way I see the calls, in the opposite perspective.
So this is a bit of a topic jump, because we want to land the plane.
Jump it up.
What are some big challenges that you've hit over your journey in any topic, in any area?
So there are a few major challenges that you have to overcome. My biggest challenge is when you encounter things that are outside of your area of expertise and they require time-sensitive handling, which happens to everybody in sales. Something hits you, the customer's irate, needs your answer, and you don't have it. So the biggest challenge was really understanding, and being able to lose something sometimes in order to understand it. You can't try to hang on to every customer. Let's say you hang on to a customer and you do it the wrong way. And then you learn that, I could say this and get them. Now you're doing that your whole career. I think a hard challenge for anybody, more than even me, is overcoming stuff that you're not comfortable with and dealing with things that you don't have the answer to. That is business 101. Getting the answers and solving the equation and doing all that and making the customer happy at the end of the day. That's the biggest challenge.
And how have you dealt with when, like, think of an example where you faced that challenge and how you've dealt with it?
I've dealt it by being honest with myself and listening to the consumer no matter how angry they are. Because sometimes you can think, oh, they're just mad, they're wrong. I want to know where my failure is. I love failure. Failure is the best place to learn. Learning from success rarely happens. You learn from failure. It's okay to fail, and it's even more okay to work through something that you're not good at. That is like those two things. If you can accept the failure and learn how to make it not happen again, wonderful. Wonderful. That's a major accomplishment that most people never do. You can go a whole business, see somebody 20 years in a business, and they do things that they're just ridiculous. You're like, well, I know how to run my business. No, you have a business that runs, but that part of your business you're not running right. But you get stuck in a habit or a pattern, and you don't know how to get out of it.
There's a line, I think it's fail fast, learn faster.
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck in a habit. That's the challenge. The challenge is succeeding and making the good things a habit and discarding the bad, and failing and accepting your biggest failures as what you're learning, and discarding the good. You know, when you call your customer and you think you failed and they say, you're great, don't pat yourself on the back. You're not there for compliments. You're there to figure out what went wrong. Maybe the person just doesn't want to talk to you. So don't convince yourself you were great. Don't go off and say, oh, you know what, maybe I didn't fail. No, you see something, go figure out what you found. You know, when your business starts to produce, you can get stuck being busy all the time and never really learning something new. A lot of businesses, only in the beginning do they set the cement. You know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. And then all of a sudden you're busy. You're going to plateau in each aspect of the business, and you need to overcome that plateau. And you don't overcome that by doing the same thing over and over again, unless you're doing it to a greater scale, of course. You overcome it by learning new avenues. Hence why I say you should have 6 streams of revenue.
What's another challenge you've hit and you've dealt with?
Dealing with things outside of the business and balancing it with things inside of the business. I think every self-employed person needs to understand balance between your business life and your personal life. If you can't balance the two, you're going to have a lot of failures, and they're not going to be the good failures. You're going to learn from them. You're going to say, I shouldn't do this. But you're not going to learn from them because you're going to do it again, right? You're working from home. You got 3 kids at home. You told your wife, don't worry, you got it. And she goes to work. You're selling, you're making cold calls, and there's a baby crying in the background. How are you overcoming that challenge? You know? So balancing home life and business life, and really stopping before you start it and figuring out how you're going to enter it, very important. Because when one fails, it bleeds to the other. When your business life fails, you can't even think of your family. You're too busy worrying about money. I'm sorry, I'm not worried about this kid's party. I got to make money, right? And when your family life's failing, how are you going to focus on business? My wife's not talking to me. Oh, hey, Mr. Ross, it's fine. Look, it doesn't work. So very important that if you're going to run your own business, you need to balance both. That's the challenge, balancing that.
And how do you navigate that challenge?
Well, you have to learn how to balance relationships. You have to learn how to manage them. Most of all, resolve things. Just like with your customers. The same person that can't resolve something at home is not resolving it with the customer either. He's the same guy yelling at home, same guy yelling at the customer. You don't know what you're talking about. It's the same thing. Your life is not different in work or at home.
It's all relationships.
It all flows. There's a harmony. You know, if you're angry at home, you're not like never angry at work. You are who you are. You are you. Unless you have multiple personality and you change it to a different person the minute you walk through the door and you're like, my name's not Bob anymore, it's Jose.
So the key is consistent therapy.
Well, it's working through stuff. Like I said, you have to identify what's going on and you have to accept the failure. You don't go to work and reject the failure. You accept it and you learn from it. Why did this fail? How am I going to fix it? Well, it failed because you're never home for dinner. Okay, I'm going to have dinner at the same time every night, and I'm not going to let my customers call me during that time. Great. You've created a work balance. Like, I don't work on Saturday. I don't. Ever. Ever. Now, can I tell a customer that's not Jewish, for example, that doesn't observe Sabbath like I do, that they can't get service on a Saturday? Right? What if they want it on a Saturday? So how do I find that solution? So I need somebody in my company that does work on a Saturday. And maybe I need to split the business that happens on a Saturday with them. I don't know. That's one solution. Or maybe it's in my pre-education when a customer starts. Hey, I want to tell you when you first start out, I work hard for you 6 days a week, but Saturday's the only day I don't work. So if it's not going to work for you, I understand. Then I won't enter in a problem with that. I have tons of customers that respect me even more for taking time off. They're like, you obviously know what you're doing because you managed to create your own personal time. Like they respect me more because I put time aside for my family and my this and my. But the time that I don't put aside for my family, that I put for them, I give to them 100%. The time that I'm giving to my customer, it is all their time. They could talk to me about anything. I am there for them 100%. The guy that's trying to balance both, he's not. He's not there for his family 100%, and he's not there for his business 100%. So you have to create a harmony. And it doesn't necessarily need to blend, like I mentioned, like somebody calls you during the day. It doesn't necessarily have to happen that way, but you need to be able to manage the harmony and not just like, yeah, it'll come in, I'll handle it. No. Know how your business works, know how your family works, and achieve balance somehow. And I think that'll solve a lot of problems because when you're in business and you either get stuck with a challenge you can't overcome was the previous question, right? Or you have a family issue, a blend issue, and you can't resolve it. It affects your business anyways. If you personally have a hard time talking to people on the phone and you need to make calls, you have to solve that. If you personally have people calling you in the middle of work and it's interrupting your sales, like you're a car salesman and someone walks in while every time you're showing someone a car, hey, can I talk to you for a second? You have to figure out how to balance that. Obviously, emergencies you handle and sometimes you take losses, but very important because when you have mental calm and you're clear and you know your stuff and you're on top of your game and you get your business and you know where you need to work on, you're not failing. You're in it to win it. You are succeeding. You're going to succeed 100%, no matter what. Like, there are plenty of companies that tell you stories where their business failed 3 times and then they became multimillionaires. And that's because they identified the first business, it was a stupid idea. And then the second business, they thought they did something better. The third business, they went with the other guy's idea. And then they finally realized they learned everything and they said, this is not how you run a business. And then they actually had a successful business. Those are the 2 challenges. Any other challenges they don't weigh as close. It's your who you are personally. You have to overcome what you're not good at, and you have to recognize your strengths and play to your strengths. And in your personal life, you have to make sure you're attentive enough to the things that matter for you. Because why are you opening a business to begin with? To make money so you can be with your family, right? Or else we wouldn't be having a conversation about balancing it.
Right.
So it's part of your business to be for it 100%. How could you be for your business 100% if you're divided?
One more question. You mentioned that any problem that can be bought with money is not a problem.
Correct.
What if your problem is that you can't get that funding to buy your problem?
You're creating right now a situation that's in the head of the person. When I say that if money's the problem, it's not a problem. If a problem can be solved with money, it's not a problem. I'm not minimizing whatever is emotionally affecting the person. I'm saying it's not a real problem if you could just use money and fix it. Because there's nothing to explain the problem. I'm hungry. Here's $10. Eat. No problem. I'm hungry, but I'm allergic to everything here. Money's not solving that problem. You have to actually solve the problem. Right? Problem with people is they throw money at a problem to solve it. Yes, there are some things. Yes, I have to pay for my license and I drive a truck. If I don't have the money to pay for my license, I can't drive a truck, right? And I don't have the money to pay for my license. Therefore, it's a problem, right? It's not a problem because you could do many things to create the money to pay for that. You can solve that in multiple ways. There's multiple ways of making money to solve the problem. You just want the money now so you can solve the business problem. You're making money the problem. It's not really the problem. If you said to me, I need money to open an office, and I said to you, why don't you work from home? You have to now justify to me why the office is necessary. Not why not having money for the office is necessary. Not having money for the office isn't the problem. It's why do you need the office to begin with? And from there, you can solve your business. There's very few businesses where if you don't have money right off the bat, you can't start them. And that's probably not a business for a startup person, right? Like, I want to build an airline. Yeah, okay. You need a few $100 million for an airline.
Let's say I had a problem where I needed to get a new server for the office, and the old server is, I mean, that actually is something we're doing right now. We need to buy it, and of course we're going to get it.
How much does a new server cost?
Let's say $10,000.
Okay, so you need $10,000. Okay, what can I do instead of having a server? Is there a cloud-based platform that I can use for $10 a month and host this space? Can I borrow a computer from a friend of mine in the meantime till I have the money for a problem? Is there enough space for that? My point that I'm saying to you is, when money is the problem, you're not really thinking of the problem. You understand? Someone has cancer. That's a problem. I can't just go solve the cancer in 24 hours. It's a problem. If you're telling me all I need is $10,000 and the difference is if I'm rich or not to pay for it, that's not the problem. The problem is that your server broke. Your problem is that you need space for your server. The problem is you need it quickly because you have a new account coming up.
Let's say you're a dentist and you want to start working, but you need the basic tools. That's going to cost you $100,000.
Then you work for a practice that has the tools and you make less money until you have the money to open your practice. Do you see what I'm saying? There's always a solution outside of having the money right now. The problem with people is they go for the money. Now, okay, you paid for it. Now, how are you paying it off? Now, sometimes it works. And if you had the money and you knew how to pay it off, that's not a problem anymore, right? Like, I don't spend money on leads? Of course I do. When I don't have the money, do I spend money on leads? No, I don't. Unless that's necessary for my business to survive. And then I have to figure out a way to get the leads to my people without spending as much money, which I explained to you. I got an affiliate company, for example. I found affiliated marketing. I had that problem. I can't buy the leads. So I found a company that would take 35% of every deal. But they'd give me leads for free, which is way more. I would average 10% on a deal if I'm paying for leads. Well, I'm going to give you 25%. I'm never doing that. But I need to do that.
That's good.
So there are ways of solving a problem. My point is, you're not going to come to the solution if all you're doing is focusing on the money. So you're saying your business you'd make $1 billion if you had a billionaire backing you, right? Because you're that smart. All you need is the money. That's it. You're successful. You don't need anything. But if you're successful, where's the money? You see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. It's that people will oftentimes look for the quick solution where they don't have the basics in place.
People make money emotional. It shouldn't be. It's a tool, like a hammer. You don't get emotional about your hammer and your screwdriver and your, oh my gosh, my hammer is dented. You don't get emotional because it's a hammer. It's a tool. But people look at money differently because it's a tool that is versatile. It can be used for food. It can be used for a business. It can be used to buy your wife something. It can be used to help your kids go to school. So you get emotional about it because it connects to all the parts of your life, right? It connects to everything. So when you get that emotional about it, you're making it so big, and then you're making it a problem. Now you've just created a problem. Without this, I can't do that. Money's not the problem. You created the problem. You made that question happen, and you made that solution necessary. That might not be the only solution. Again, it might not be the best solution. Truth is, everybody started at some point with nothing. You know, everything started from nothing at some point and built its way up. Somebody built it up without the money. Somebody invented the light bulb without the money. Somebody discovered a wheel without the money. The question is, who did it successfully and what did they do? And the answer is in the thought process. You have an unlimited pool of resources here, and especially since you can access information online. There are a lot of solutions. Not saying that you don't need money.
It's a great mindset.
It's the only mindset you need in business, because when you have the money to spend, you'll spend it. It's not about that. It's about understanding that there's so much about business that has nothing to do with the money. The goal of business is to make money. So if you're making it a problem that you don't already have the money, you're at a double negative. I need to make money, and also, by the way, I don't have any money. So like, now you have two problems to overcome. How are you going to overcome them evenly? So you're going to put 50% of your time into finding money and then 50% of your time running the business? Why don't you spend 100% time running the business, and then you'll generate the money for what you're missing? Or maybe it's not a good business. Maybe the situation that we're deciding on doesn't need that, because you can't generate money to pay for that. And then you shouldn't have that. Right? I want to get an office. I wanted to have 100 people in my office and fill the seats and do this and do that. I can't afford that. And to this day, I've never had 100 people work for me in real estate. So it's a great idea, and I need a lot of money for that. But that's not what my business really needed. Does that answer your question, mostly?
Yeah, it does. So before we finish, if someone was watching this and they're like, I want to work with this guy, how would they find you, and how would you help them?
Well, my email address is tamirishere@gmail.com. Very easy to find, very easy to remember. My number is 516-864-1212. Anybody can call me anytime, American line. Anytime. I'm happy to help them. I love mentor. I love making new relationships. If I think I'm wasting my time, I'll tell you right there on the phone. It's perfectly fine. The most important thing in that answer is the email address that I just gave. Because you need to have a point of contact whenever you're a business that anybody can get you no matter what. So whatever that is that's convenient for you, for me it's the email because I operate in multiple time zones, right? And it's easy to remember. Tamirishere@gmail.com. Someone wants to do business with me, they can call me. I'll be happy to help them, whether it's finding a house or helping them run their own business or maybe investing in something. I'm very easy like that. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Tamir.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming in. You've shared a lot of valuable advice and insights, and I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. I hope everybody could stay long enough to watch the whole video.